Set. Trout ready. The 3-2 pitch. Trout swings and misses, and Japan wins the 2023 WBC. Ohtani fires his helmet towards the dugout. He's mobbed on the mound by his teammates, and Japan goes undefeated in winning the championship tonight, 3-2.
I was going to say, if Japan wins this game and Shane does not use the call on the Japanese radio network, I would have been a little disappointed.
That's your guy. I like he's been my ride or die for like 12 years. Yeah, I don't know about that. Today,
You're done with that one?
Today he's yours. I mean,
yeah, I'll take him. I'll put him in my pocket.
I mean, it started with the baby voice.
Well, it started with the inside voice because we came into some tunes. He was bumping tunes this morning.
He was like, oh, sorry. What?
It's like the girl in Pitch Perfect.
And you guys say I'm a quiet talker. It's like I didn't hear a word he said. He's 4 feet.
So do I need to like put a little bit of compression on my voice?
Compression? What the world is compression?
It
like shorts, those tight little babies people wear under their jersey?
Maybe EQ it a little bit, take the high end out.
What is compression?
Maybe put the low end up a little bit.
Same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, how does that sound? Do I sound pretty bassy?
Maybe we'll pump you up with an air compressor.
No.
Is that more my inside voice?
No, actually not so much. Who do you think's in a worse mood? You or Dana Altman?
Ooh. Too soon?
No, he was just being crabby. Well, at least
sorry that Chucky Hepburn made a shot with 50 seconds to go.
He's pretty clutch. He's pretty clutch.
Well, and not only just that, I'm thinking more from, hey, you're still only down like one at this point, and you have 50 seconds. Like, let's not blame 3,000 fans for your demise.
I don't even know why I got started here, except for Shaden was a little crabby. At least Altman said he was in a bad mood. He's like, I'm not in a very good mood. You can tell.
We do like transparency from our head coaches.
Hey, can I read you something, though, real quick?
Yeah, let's hear it.
My man goes, if it's me, then make the change. Make the change. Somebody will hire me somewhere. Last time I did that, and he's a good friend. We just had breakfast a month and a half ago. He came in 2 days later. He said, I think I'm going to call you on your
familiar face to the area.
Yeah, he goes, somebody will hire me somewhere. I'll go coach junior ball. I love junior college ball. Those guys are dogs. They want to be in the gym all the time. I love those guys. For 3,300 people from Wisconsin. Do you like my voice?
Yep.
You should hear me read.
You're buying in.
You should hear me read the kids. It's fantastic. They're like, this dude's a clown, but we love him because he's a nerd. I'm disappointed, and I appreciate the people who came. But 3,300 people who did come, great. Sure, I appreciate them. The people who have stuck with us. Again, I'm not a promoter. I'm not out in public. I don't have Twitter and all that stuff. My job is to coach. My man said, if it's me, then make the change. Make the change. Somebody will hire me somewhere. Okay, D. Apparently Shrewsbury to Oregon.
Yeah. Oh.
No, I'm not.
Drop it down.
No.
Dana Altman to Providence.
No. Dude, like who goes there?
Yeah.
My favorite.
Whose fault is that? Whose
Well,
fault is it that you don't want to be on social media, that you don't want to promote your program?
That's my guy, so I'm riding with him, but I get it.
Whose fault is that?
It's Coach DA's.
It's Coach DA's fault.
But listen, he says, I'm not in a very good mood.
And I get
you
that.
can tell.
And I get that.
Yeah.
But striking down on the fan base because you're in a bad mood?
You want the
Tell us how you really feel.
You want the death knell? You see the commitment that Wisconsin makes with cheerleaders, the band. We make a commitment. Don't get me wrong. But you can just see how important it is to them. Okay.
Dana Altman's everything.
Okay, DA. Yes.
Yeah, that's not the best look.
Yeah, that one's probably going to leave him.
It's going to haunt him.
Yeah. Well, it depends. Be a couple job openings here.
Well, in the world of
Is Oregon
NIL,
a good basketball job? Oregon's a good basketball job.
Yeah, especially because Nike was established there, so they have the best equipment.
I had a
lot of
coach.
good facility money.
I literally just had a coach tell me, if Oregon is recruiting a kid, we won't because they can just pay for him. How about that?
Well, and if you want to go back to what I was about to say with NIL money, if you pee off the fans, let's just say,
I think you can say tinkle on there.
Hey, I'm not going to say tinkle. You're a tinkle guy. I know you are.
I said the P word a couple times.
Yeah, and it's cool.
It won't even type it in my phone.
I like to keep it fresh, keep it groovy.
I was talking about an event that currently happened, and I said, I bet he's off. And it on my phone, it went P *****. Did it give me the ED or just the D?
It automatically starred your phone?
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. I think my phone knows, like,
Well, I don't ever text expletives, but my phone doesn't do that.
Yeah. You're not afraid to drop them.
No, not at all.
The one
Especially,
I heard, the one this morning was kind of uncalled for. I was like, well, where'd that come from?
Oh.
It
hit me at home because I was a baseball player.
Yeah.
And this I just kind of threw that out there, and everybody's like, what's he talking about? What about baseball? What is this? What is that? It's about the Huskers in Creighton. It's about the World Baseball Classic. What is it about?
Major League Baseball.
People do make jumps in baseball.
A lot.
Okay.
A lot.
Okay.
Ask any baseball player that wasn't highly recruited out of high school. Did you start at D3 and stay at D3?
Okay,
Did you start in JUCO?
Okay.
And stay in JUCO?
Yeah.
Did you only play for 2 years and then say, I'll go to Nebraska and just be a student? People make jumps in baseball all the time. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, man, the game down at the ballpark on Coffee and Cream this morning. Good morning. Full disclosure, it may be one of those shows. You were up late catching up. I was
really late.
I was thoroughly enjoying Kraken comeback. I don't even know.
How about a little puck on ice in our intro?
Yeah. I love when people say 6 on 5. Because
I think it's good.
You don't hear it a ton, and it's like, wait a minute.
Carry the 2.
A couple of 6 on 5 goals, but it was just weird. Just because I'm taking advantage of what my television setup affords me, I watched the Padres play softball in an exhibition against the Rockies.
That's kind of cool.
I mean,
not often you can do that.
It's
How did you do that? Was it just on regular television?
It's
or did you look it up on YouTube?
No. It says I don't know if you can read this.
I can't read.
And so it gives me
some
options and stuff. So that's kind of why I'm a sports nerd. Because I mean, it's everything. I even have a DAZN pass for like boxing. DAZN. I
don't even know what that is.
It's a promotion company.
Oh, okay.
So like I can get super specific.
Yeah, I used to pay for Stream Pass. Have you ever
Stream
Have
Pass?
you ever heard of that?
I like when you have kind of the furrowed brow. It's like you're serious, like
Have you
Stream
seen
Pass.
Stream Pass?
No, I
Have
haven't
you
seen
heard of Stream Pass?
haven't
No,
seen
I got to watch all the UFC fights on Stream Pass.
So did you not during? I should know, so forgive me. I've never practiced Catholicism. Is it the TV? Is it RCA? What did you say?
RCIA.
RCIA.
Rite of Christian Initiation. Right of
Association? I always think
No.
association
No.
when I hear. Don't laugh. I'm just asking.
No, I'm trying to figure out what the A is for now.
It's not Christian Association.
RCIA. Right of.
I don't know why I thought it was
Initiation.
RCA except for the television or for the TV. Do they still? Is RCA still a brand, Shane? Anyway,
I'm losing it.
were you tempted to not to want
Of
to watch
adults.
the game? No wonder we didn't know.
The Husker Creighton game.
Yeah,
It was on the table.
really.
In the meetings.
So I don't know. So
I didn't have the sound on, obviously.
So my buddy Degenerate Aaron, he was. I shouldn't call him that.
I just got myself in trouble.
He's an his name is just Aaron, but he's my wrestling guy. We talk about. He's a total foodie. He's the guy who showed me the cool knife that I showed you on TikTok the other day that I want to buy. Apparently his brother has one of those too.
The tomahawk knife.
Yeah, I need that thing. But anyway, it would have helped me with the brisket this weekend. They didn't cut it right.
Did you trim it?
I didn't. I
Okay.
thought they did. That's why I was watching the trimming video during the break yesterday, and I was like, mine didn't look like that.
You're like, oh, mine had a lot of.
But I'm not good. You know, I got to get better at some things. But anyway, he didn't know if you could. He was looking for a Nebraska Public Media like live app. And I know sometimes, like when I'm out of, like if I've been at my in-laws and like in Gothenburg, and I wanted to, it just so happens like I wanted to watch things that were on Nebraska, yeah. And so to get them set up and use the live, I don't know if on the app you can watch live broadcast, but I'm like, wait a minute, aren't you at home? Like you can just go to it. So now he sent me a screenshot of his television, and I think he has YouTube. It looked like YouTube, although his background is a lot. It's one syllable, cool. Is it more cool or cooler than mine? It's cooler than mine. Not to go all Luke Reimer.
Yes.
More faster. But God bless. See, I love Luke. Luke could say
anything, practically anything.
Oh, me hate cheese. And I'd be like, oh, that's okay. It's a staple for me. But it's
me
okay.
Hate most things.
If you don't like cheese, which is my favorite, it's okay, Luke. Anyway, like his background was a lot cooler than mine. But I need to change my TV setup. And I probably see better too. His contrast was nice.
Anyway,
I'm just having a moment. Just having a moment. Couldn't? Do you think you can't record?
So yeah, I was watching the game live on YouTube TV.
We're talking about Nebraska baseball, great.
Yep. And I was on PBS, right? Public Media, not PBS.
Is it
PBS?
The channel that Shane was watching cartoons on.
Is that Nebraska Public Media?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And
great people. Shout out Gavin
I hit
Felix.
almost every button that it allowed me to hit to try to find a way to record it, and it said only watch now. It would not let me record.
Are you YouTube?
YouTube.
Is that your streamer?
Mm-hmm.
Could you add it to your library?
No, and I don't know if it was because it was already live or what, but
they might have some fancy rights. I mean, they're pretty smart.
So it's funny that you say that, because before I left, I had to do my due diligence, because I'm like, this is a game I can't miss. So why'd
you say it like that?
Well, because
this is a game I can't.
Yeah, it was an entertaining game, right?
Who am I missing?
And so
depends. When did you watch it?
Well, I watched it at 8:30 in the second inning last night.
I couldn't believe when you're texting me you're starting. I'm like, why don't you just go to the funny part that I told you to start?
No, I had to listen to the whole thing.
So you had to go all the way back.
I had to go all the way back because I watched the first 2 innings of that game before I could leave.
Yeah.
And Ashley was great. She's like, you can stay home. I know this game's important for you guys to talk about tomorrow. I'm like, no, it's fine. I'll try to record it. And then when I couldn't record it, I'm like, man, all right, I'm just going to pause it and hope and pray. Shout out upstairs. Hope and pray.
Shout out, JC.
That when I come home, it's just going to resume right where I paused it.
Yeah.
And then I get a call from you, which is kind of rare in the evening.
I'm not on my phone.
You're more than anything. You probably text me more than you call me.
I'm not.
You call me and I'm like, oh man, there has to be something important or childish. And so I sent DB a voicemail and I texted him right away. I'm like, hey, I'm at RCIA. I'll call you when I'm done. You're like, oh, you don't have to. I'll just text you. And you start blowing up my phone with funny things, funny, childish things. And I'm like,
it's not childish.
I'm like, you got to be kidding me. The one game that I could have sat home and watched, but no, I decided to go to RCIA. A lot of fun happens throughout that game.
So we got into a little bit. It wasn't spirited, but we certainly don't agree. I feel like this game would be better attended if it were a couple of top 25, just good programs, right? Because I mean, Nebraska's clamoring for a winner. and Creighton has their loyal fan support. You're like, bro,
I think it comes down to
Tuesday.
temperature.
It's Tuesday night and it's cold. Move it to a weekend. I'm like, really?
Yep. I think if you play this game not during the literal school year for kids in town,
when should a Nebraska Creighton rivalry be scheduled in your eye with conference scheduling? Is it a non-con game?
I think it's one of those just one-off games that you can mix in.
Well, apparently it's a 3-off.
Oh, yeah, I guess it's 3-off, but yeah, you bounce them around.
Maybe
right?
you just go back to home and away.
If
and
you go
play,
back to
you play the deuce,
right? If you go back to 2, you can get a. Man, now I'm starting to think like even if you
can't play that game on a weekend unless it's a non-con, right?
Right. And scheduling wouldn't match up if you had a so-called bye week. So, yeah, you have to play the game during the week. If the temperature was warmer, you have more people there on a Tuesday night, no matter what.
We didn't even talk about it on yesterday's show. Now, maybe that's on us.
Mm-hmm.
But vibing with the way the show went, it was just like,
spring practice kind of took precedence over a lot of other things, and then we just kind of went throughout the show with.
So I'm thinking to myself, it's over, right? And I don't know, we were here late yesterday for a multitude of reasons. Which, by the way, I apparently have a 10 o'clock now.
Congrats.
Yeah, thanks.
He's getting promoted.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard you were running your mouth. You want to come see me? Yeah, off to the principal's office we go.
I swear he punched me first.
Story of my life. There wasn't the buzz. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's on us as media. But we also can't generate, we can't make our interests listener and reader and digital, because apparently people didn't know that there's a difference between digital platforms and print, but that's a different conversation. But that there's a we can't make that our thing, but it wasn't on my radar until about 11:30, and listen, I just watched spring training. Like, I love baseball.
Mm-hmm. And the World Baseball Classic final was last night. It was carrying a lot of weight because we've been seeing it progress over weeks now.
How fitting was that they lost, though? I mean, that was so World Baseball Classic.
And how magical was it to see?
Wasn't all that
Angel versus Angel?
Wasn't all that magical?
Oh, you don't think so?
No.
Seeing Shohei Ohtani against Mike Trout, two of the best in the game.
At no point, maybe the first swing and miss, he was close. After that,
oh, Shohei was blowing it by him.
Dude, how about
blowing it?
I was talking to Wrestling Cody, and we were texting back and forth during WBC, and he's like 3-2 slider. How about the filth and stones to throw that thing? And I was like, yeah, he missed it by about 8 inches too. So
yeah, I was about to say the command on Shohei Ohtani's pitches are unmatched.
Who doesn't just pump it at? Smoltzy told a story during the broadcast. He goes, yeah, Sasaki was telling, about the first time he saw Shohei Ohtani. It's like he's in a bullpen doing a session. He touches 1-on-1. And he comes out and he takes BP and he hits a ball 118 miles an hour off the barrel.
440 feet.
And I was like, I felt like it was like Mercy Me. Is it Mercy Me or Casting Crowns? I get them confused. But who sings I Can Only Imagine? Like, I can only imagine what it would be like.
That's Mercy Me.
To touch triple digits.
Mercy Me is a great song. The other song, the original one.
Well, the song's not called Mercy Me. The group
I Can Only
Mercy
Imagine is Mercy Me.
Shane. Hey, man, I told you earlier, we're not cool right now.
Yeah, there it is. Saw that coming.
So
from a mile away.
First of all, congratulations on talking through your headsets like a producer. Second of all, you can only talk to Andrew. You're on.
So do I get to talk like in mono here, like on the left side here, since you're on the left over there?
He's asking if he can talk in mono on the left side.
Whatever compression
that makes
isn't.
no sense.
He said that makes no sense.
It's the story of his.
I don't know if you can hear him because you don't want to.
Story of his life.
Tuned out.
Do you realize he hasn't even told me I'm not in the
in stream?
Do you want me to come in the stream now?
You can do whatever you like.
He knew
That's
you
a better
can do
song.
Whatever you like.
I do like T.I. How crazy is it that I drop a T.I. in him?
And a mercy me in a matter of a minute. Yeah. Yeah, because they're on the same wavelength.
Hey man, some people just call it range.
So they both make good money.
I don't know. Like, I think if let's say Nebraska's top, what do you want to give them?
22. They're 20. They're
Nice.
22nd in the nation.
Nice number. But who's more apt to be in the top 25, Creighton or Nebraska?
This year, Creighton.
But I don't know. Nebraska should be pretty good. That's
the key word.
On paper,
should,
no, I
right?
understand. On paper, that's a good roster.
Right.
They are underachieving right now, especially on the bump. That is the elephant in the room. Like the inability to get people out after a starter you're trending, right? But Creighton, do we have a problem by saying relative to the conference they play in? Because I feel like that's the thing.
No.
Because Creighton's won like 7 out of the last 8 and like 4 in a row. So we can't keep saying that.
Right.
I agree.
Right. Like, I'm just saying, like, at some point.
We got to get past that.
No, it's Bo. It is what it is.
I'll take it.
So why are we so quick to say that, though?
Why are we so quick to say Creighton?
Because I simply said, well, who's more apt to be top 22? And you said, well, Nebraska.
And it all go. No, I say Creighton. Oh no, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I put them at 22.
So why when Creighton is beating Nebraska, do we assume, is it because of the opportunities? Is it because of the non-con?
I kind of look at it more
because I really don't know. I thought about this a ton this morning.
Yeah, and it's not. I don't think it's that much about strength of schedule. I think it is about where you play, who you play against.
Yeah.
And as you said, they're a team that is underachieving. This Nebraska team is a group that if they figured it out, they would be successful in the Big Ten. But we can't keep going with these ifs or shoulds.
Yeah, it reminds me of Satterfield's line about if you have to keep telling me what a player should do at some point, you can't coach.
Right. But if you look at Duke basketball this year and all the promise that they've had.
Well, this will be good. A Duke analogy.
Right. And they underperformed for most of the year. And then they got hot at the right time. This is a team that if they do get hot, they will accrue wins. But that's not it right now. If you're taking a team in this game, frankly, Nebraska was the better team last night.
Yeah.
And just because of a few mistakes late in that game, they ended up losing.
Yeah.
We'll continue it next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds.
Well, I think we have a great staff. You should try go coach somewhere. I'm saying most kids now.
Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Welcome back to the show, 888-638-4876. If you'd like to get involved, it's Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. We are live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club alongside Damon Benning, at Damon Benning on Twitter.
Is that me?
Rogers, that is you. That is you. Hey, was I Mike Trout or was I Kyle Schwarber by not setting up the show in the first segment?
I'm going to throw you, no pun intended, a curveball. You're probably Schwarber because after he hit the bomb, he gave the look like, I got this. And you're kind of an I got this guy, even though we didn't set the lineup, which is, it's whatever.
I may have struck out there.
No, but you have a Schwarber type bravado.
Yeah,
so
I just fouled off 10 pitches and just hit a home run.
Hey, did you see the look on it? The subtle, and he does to a T after he smoked it because he typically only pulls home runs. My man gave it the.
Yeah.
Yep. It's just what he does.
Yep.
It's like, I crushed that thing.
And this may be
this
may be the thing that just doesn't stick in my head. Did he win the home run derby?
I can't even remember.
Who won the home run derby last year?
I don't pay attention. Do you want me to know? I don't know.
You don't know either.
I just know that Shohei Ohtani hit 435 in the WBC, and he threw 9 2/3 innings with a 1.86 ERA. But I don't know who won the home run contest.
Who won the home run derby last year?
Because all those numbers are real. 186, 9 2/3, 435.
Julio Rodriguez was the
runner-up. Okay. So who won?
Who won? Another lefty.
No, Big Mix. I called him Big Mix.
He didn't win?
Pujols is like a big dude. I was watching him playing a
massive.
celebrity hoop game. I was like, ooh.
Yeah, he used to work out at Lifetime Fitness at a random, just big gym in St. Louis.
Oh, the big one off the interstate right before you get into the city? It's huge. It's got all glass. It says Lifetime on it.
In St. Louis?
Yeah, it's in like a little retail place.
No, he worked out in Chesterfield, I believe.
I don't.
So a nice
whose field?
a prestigious.
Who's Chester?
Yeah. Who's Chester? Yeah, he played left.
Yeah.
No,
Remember,
left-handed hitter.
Remember, I've been to St. Louis a couple times in the last 5 years.
That's right.
So there's some
I'm
things
just
that are
shocked that you
because
pick up on
just
that Lifetime Fitness.
Like I knew Ohtani stats in the WBC. No, some weird things just stick. And I was like, gosh, that's a monster Lifetime Fitness.
Mm-hmm.
Just like I remember driving back coming from St. Louis. And the Blues had just won that there's a house you can see from the interstate with a sloped yard that had the Blues logo mowed into the grass.
That's fantastic.
Dude, it was the sweetest thing I've ever seen. Like I've seen some fields and I watched these little dudes on TikTok with with Arrowhead in their backyard and some little dude got cooked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that Blues logo, and I told you, 2 houses down from my
Not
mom.
3 doors down.
Here and Now. What's one of their songs?
Kryptonite? No. Right?
Miss
It's
you,
Kryptonite.
mistake.
Who sings
Too
Kryptonite?
long, too late.
Yeah,
that's
Kryptonite.
That might be Nickelback.
I was
Shane,
right.
I get them all confused, man. Who's one of the little? Who's?
I took a walk around the world.
Yeah, I don't know that
My
song.
troubled mind.
He's
Not
an
that
idiot.
one.
See?
Not that one.
Okay, listen. Hey, go back to the corner.
Ain't nobody puts baby in the corner.
What did I do?
What did I do? Hey, you parked 17 feet from the curb again. That's what you did. Hey, so
Well, I can't see in the morning.
I can't see. I can't see so good. Should I bring my shoes and my glasses so I have them?
Yeah, Spencer Lee's mom can't see so good either.
Hey, stop! Hey, you're gonna get off of. You're gonna leave Spencer Lee alone. Okay, you're gonna leave Spencer Lee alone. I heart that dude. I get the parents thing.
Hey,
I don't want to listen.
Fun. I like to poke the bear.
And how are you just drumming that up like 4 days later?
We're talking about glasses. He can't see.
Wow. I bet she could whoop you too.
Probably. And I'd take it like a man.
Hey, man, how come you couldn't get out of that cradle? I don't know, man. She had her hands locked. 45 degrees, man.
All of a sudden, I just couldn't move.
Dang, who just whooped Andrew? I don't know. Spencer Lee's mom put it on him.
What division were you in, Andrew?
Lightweight. Lightweight. She probably would put it on you, though.
I wouldn't be shocked.
Nah, I messed up my train of thought.
We were talking about 3 doors down, the mowing of the lawn. You had a friend.
I don't know, man. You got me all discombobulated because I don't think, for whatever the reason, when to schedule Nebraska Creighton baseball is like trying to solve pie. We just can't figure out the proper schedule to get this game what it needs to be. Right? Because this was either last year or a couple years ago. We spent like 55 minutes in total trying to figure out where Creighton could build another baseball field, like on campus. Mm-hmm. Right, we spent a lot of time on that campus. Just had a tournament on that campus. It's an amazing campus. It's a pretty campus. Not a lot of room. Right? So, but like, what if you put Creighton in like a 3,000 seat stadium? And it's in Omaha, and it's Nebraska Creighton. Would that game feel different?
The smaller the stadium, the bigger it'll feel.
So if they schedule that thing in there in Haymarket, and let's say Nebraska's not top 22. Why you pick 22 out of number?
Yeah,
do you have a thing for Doug Flutie? You guys both have nice hair.
Hey, thanks.
Was he 22 or was he 20?
Flutie?
Yeah. Shane, was Doug Flutie 20 or 22?
No, he was only like 5'6".
Yeah, thanks, Shane.
He's
5'10".
I can't stand this.
That
dude.
guy.
Yeah, like
20.
So If Nebraska was Doug DeBose.
Now I'm seeing 22 as well. He's both.
if Nebraska baseball was Doug DeBose, 22, and they played it at Haymarket, and let's say Creighton comes in at 7-14, how many people are going to Haymarket? 2,000? Oh, for sure, right?
Yeah, good guess.
3,000 for sure, right?
As long as the weather is nice.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I really do believe that.
So the non-con isn't going to help because it's not warm yet.
Right. Now, last year, Omaha, Nebraska met random Sunday.
Are we going to Omaha?
It was a reschedule, UNO,
yeah,
in Omaha, and it was beautiful.
No, I understand.
It was that lucked out day in, I don't know if it was March or early April.
Pretty random.
It was a random
Things
day.
had just melted and it was warm.
That place was bumping
because
of good weather. And I think people are just itching for good weather at that time of year too.
But Drew Down, Baxter is built correctly.
Tal, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's built correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's just about the
size of that stadium makes sense. But that's what you're getting at with the Charles Schwab's huge.
But so what does that have? So what does that have to do with Nebraska's inability to go to the bullpen and have any sort of faith?
It has nothing to do with that. And at the beginning of the
year,
would
you text me late? You're like, if Walsh would have only had. And I was like,
did I? I probably texted you a lot of things.
Hey, yeah, you were on a roll. Like you crack yourself up, don't you?
Oh, I laugh. I laugh every time I send something.
So at what point did you think Sears was in trouble? Did you hear Bolt's postgame?
No, but I heard Ed's.
So I don't know, you're pretty neutral, right? Mm-hmm. So I've learned to be objective in this job. Nebraska is my alma mater, but I have some particular relationships built locally that, I think, I have a really good relationship with Coach Service. I have a tremendous relationship with Coach McDermott. So when it comes to Nebraska Creighton, my allegiance, man, I'm Team State School, that's my alum, but I'm kind of a baby and a little bit of a chump. So it's but I like those guys because they're good to me. I'm listening. You can't quite hear the audio, but I can see the body language and people looking.
And that tells more than audio sometimes.
Dude, how about the eye contact they were giving Coach Service when he was talking to his team after the deal, and they're nodding. Mm-hmm. He hasn't made one body motion. He's just talking. I can just see his little head moving. I was like, oh, God, look at their eyes. They're all in. I paused it because I'm weird that.
Yeah, you are.
Because I know that stuff works.
And that respect goes a long way.
Right? And then I'm like, I want that. I want that in the teams that I cheer for because I think that works. And right now, man, I just think at no point did Creighton not think that they were going to win that game. They probably thought to themselves, this is Nebraska. This could be 4 in a row. They'll find a way to tinkle it down their leg.
When Sears threw that first pass ball away, that's when I felt he didn't have it. He just didn't have it at that moment. We'll set up the show, I promise, next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes.
Sailors lines that into left field. Back goes Evans over his head. One run in and Heligso. Here comes Ben Gabor around to score. Gabor is in as well as Tate Gillen. and it is a bases-clearing double for Nolan Sailors.
With 2 strikes as well. That's great 2 strikes on a cold night.
Be joined now by Ed Service. And Coach, we've seen it from Nolan Sailors all year long, talking about the big double, bases clearing back in the second.
Well, he's a good player, and he can hit left on left too. And, that was a big play. We had a lot of energy in that inning. It's too bad we couldn't hold on. When we score, sometimes the biggest inning of the game is the next inning, and we couldn't hold on. So got a lot of game left.
Yeah, and Cade and Dom coach.
Well, he's a good player, and he can hit left.
Both try
for joining us.
You bet. Thanks, guys.
Hit sharply down the third base line. Great play by North, who
right there.
Evans hits that sharply, but right at Meggs, back to first for a double play. That's how you get out of a tough inning. Nebraska did not make the play at first, but a great snag, and that one gets the out. So here's Cole Evans. Evans hits that sharply, but right at Meggs, back to first for a double play. That's how you get out of a tough inning. Nebraska puts back to
2-run ball game. 2 outstanding ball players right here.
Max Anderson lifts it into left. Nice diving grab by Tate Gillen to stop the Husker rally. So here's Cole Evans. Evans hits that sharply.
Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
2-run ball game. 2 outstanding ball players right here.
Max Anderson lifts it into left. Nice diving grab by Tate Gillen to stop the Husker rally.
Welcome back. We are talking to Brian Christopherson at the top of the hour, where we follow that up with a conversation with Sam McKewon, who we moved from Monday.
Yeah, see, Sam was at the 8 a.m. presser
That's
on
why.
Monday.
That is why.
So I didn't want to. We didn't want to give him the little time slot, 8:30, but because Sam will be covering Pro Day,
Which is today.
he's very defiant. I'm gonna talk to Sam about his tone in terms of how he talked to my man Shane Schilleberg.
Oh, he was fine.
Although Shane was probably just being a wiener.
I was being
So
a
he
wiener.
was like, Sam was Sam. This is probably how it went. Hey, Sam, Shane, David said you'd like to move to Wednesday. How's 9 o'clock? No, I got to go at 8:30.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, 8:30. Then this morning, Shane, Sam didn't want the big time slot at 9. No, he said 8:30. He's very direct.
She did say that. That's word for word.
Well, he's very-
Shane, are you being a wiener, or did he just say 8:30 and you were like you turtled up in the fetal position? Which was it?
So I didn't talk to him. I texted him. I said, Sam,
You can't. So do you know how many times in my life I've heard you can't read tone? You can't read tone.
Sam, could we do Wednesday this week at 9 a.m. instead? He just put 8:30. I
Oh.
said, okay, that'll work.
Maybe he was in a hurry. Maybe he didn't want. Maybe he was doing talk to text.
I
and
won't
he
argue
couldn't
with
get the
you.
alphanumeric thing right.
I would never argue with Sam. He's too smart for me to argue with.
Sam would be a guy that would probably debate Socrates.
Would he win?
I don't know. I like the vocab has like grown since then. So Socrates might have been at a disadvantage because he may not have as great a command of the English language.
Fair point.
Yeah.
Sam jumps back into time to argue with Socrates.
So what did I hear this weekend where I almost had to leave? I heard so I was down in Lincoln. My man hit me with a Kipling reference. The author. I started to walk out. I'm like, who says that?
Hey, Shane, if you are want to write down this name on your card over there, Rudyard.
Rudyard.
I'm gonna go with Rude because
Barrett and Bo?
yeah, we're gonna go Rude. We're all about the Rude.
Is this something I got to write down for?
No,
later?
Yeah,
no,
yep.
no.
It's gonna be name and author.
But before
Yeah,
we
kinda
finish
looks like Jay.
with Kevin Sjuts at 9:30, to round out the show live,
And Kyle Boone at 9:45.
live from H&H Chevrolet Studio. Are we? I'm gonna land this plane because I just want to know because we're trying to solve all the world's problems. Short of Creighton building a stadium on campus, doesn't Nebraska have to be better since you think the state school would garner bigger numbers? Like, at what point is it not about locale and schedule versus you just have to be better?
Yeah, you do have to be better. But
That's 4 in a row.
I still don't think in the month of March that you're going to get a huge crowd, whether you have a good team or not.
What do you have against the month of March?
The weather. I have a problem with Mother Nature.
Yeah,
And Mother Nature has a problem with baseball.
and Mother Nature is always going to win. She
I was
does
just
what
looking
the
at
heck
the-
she wants to do.
I was looking at the Nebraska baseball schedule. They play Omaha right smack dab in the middle of Big Ten play on April 25th on a Tuesday.
They've already taken a L to Omaha, though. That's not their fault.
Right, but what I'm saying is if you play that game April 25th, it's probably going to be warmer. You'd hope, right? Because you're getting closer and closer to summer now. And if the weather is nice, that Tuesday game will be packed. Now, that's at Tal, so it's unfair to make that comparison as we were talking about with the size of Charles Schwab. But I will say this, as a former player, I would like to play at Schwab more than I'd like to play at a smaller stadium.
Why?
Because of the idea of being able to play in the big stadium downtown, the stadium where the College World Series takes place.
Have you ever walked into the Chuck when it's empty?
Yeah, I have. But you act like that, but you still get all of the great facilities with it. Like you get everything that is kind of like as close as you can get to a minor league baseball stadium.
Okay, let me ask you something. Shoot me straight. 100% true, sir. This is total. Shane, you're a nerd. It's Marvel. It's a total Black Widow moment. You walk into Tao, get done taking BP, you're sitting in a dugout. You walk into Charles Schwab. It's empty.
Mhm.
You get done taking BP, you're sitting in the dugout. Schwab gives you more warm fuzzies than no way.
Yeah, because I'm seeing seats all around.
You know about 1/12 of them are going to be filled.
But that doesn't matter to me because now I'm getting that feeling of, hey, I'm playing in a major league baseball stadium. You wouldn't fill that if you were two colleges, right? You'd show up and you'd probably fill about maybe 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, whatever. But I'd still get those warm fuzzies of like, this is sick. Like I am playing at the elite,
So honest talk,
the top tier stadium,
honest talk, right?
cream of the crop.
Okay, it's you're Ord and you're playing at Memorial Stadium in the state championship, and you've got 2,200 people in a 90,000 seat stadium versus 2,200 people in a 2,200 capacity seat stadium. You think that it feels better just because you're in Memorial Stadium?
Where's that 2,200? Is that at the high school?
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It could be.
I think
it's anywhere other than where that game is being played.
Anything other than their high school?
Anything other than where anything
Other than Memorial Stadium.
Put it at Put it at Ron and Carol Cope Stadium in Kearney with 2,200 people packed to the gills.
Mhm.
You think as a player, you're like, woohoo, man, Memorial Stadium. This is better than 2,200 elbow to elbow.
I do.
Not a chance.
And I'm not talking about just like how loud it would get,
but it's the environment. But if we're talking environment, then everything matters.
But DB, it's the fact for me that when I'm thinking of a kid playing at a smaller school who grew up loving Nebraska, I want to play at Memorial Stadium someday. Like, that's what I play for. Can you imagine just stepping on that football field just one time? And most small schools, most small school kids don't go on to play Division I football. Most. There are some that do. And because of that, if I'm a kid that am playing for the state title, I want to do it where Nebraska plays football because that's the team I grew up loving and watching. It's kind of like in St. Louis, I had a lot of teams and calls at the Edward Jones Dome. Like, people flocked to where the St. Louis Rams played just for the idea of, hey, I get to be in the locker room where the Rams players sit. I get to just walk out on the turf.
I can't stand that facility.
Well, the Edward Jones Dome is a poor example for a facility, but it's the idea of playing an NFL stadium.
And 1996 happened, playing Texas.
Yeah,
in the Big 12
that too. Sorry. Sorry. I brought up Duke and I brought up that.
Yeah, I mean,
it's striking out today.
I'm in my head, I'm like, fudge. Would I rather win state at Orville Smith in Ralston or lose 2-1 to Burke at Rosenblatt? I'm not enamored with Rosenblatt because I took an L.
And I get
but
that.
I love the environment at Orville, right? So it's like, I don't know.
You bring up a great point.
So do you know what I want?
Size.
I want the electricity.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want the venue.
Yep. And that's the 2 points right there. Do you want what everything would feel like, hey, the crowd's on top of you, or do you want that specialty venue that you never get to play in? It's kind of like, what hill would you rather go toward?
Yeah.
And I don't think you can guess wrong. Like when COVID took place and covering state championship games at the high schools, it wasn't the same, but the environment was better at the smaller schools.
But we're bearing the lead. Why can't Nebraska win more midweek games?
Is it because you go away from your true starter and you're struggling to find that midweek pitcher? I don't know. I think that's only Will Bolt can answer that question right now.
Like, at what point when you were watching Brockett where you're like, oh man, he's got it today? Good command.
Not once.
Not once.
Not once.
Right? So
although Walsh looked pretty fire.
I mean, so first of all, we weren't even sure like how long Cancelleri was going to go. Then all of a sudden Cancelleri goes, 2 2/3. Then Lommel comes in and it's like, oh gosh, let's ride the big fella. We're getting better. Here's my thing. And Nebraska only used 4 pitchers too. But we were surprised what we got out of Walsh. It seems like Creighton expected to get what they got out of their guys. Like, what's the difference?
The difference is Creighton has a guy that you can go to at the end, and Nebraska
Well, it's not like Steyer was razor sharp. He was,
but he has
he has what I think we're missing is that's the belief factor.
He's got that X factor.
When that guy takes the bump, I'm pretty I mean, did you see how he came out of the bully?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the locks were flowing.
Right.
He checked the band. He jogs out, and it's like, oh man, I think he feels like he's got this.
He's got a little Josh Hader in him, right? A little
swag. The long hair.
Long hair. He's got that different arm slots like we heard about 500 times last night.
Stop. You're not messing with you anymore. You're a child. That can't help
what?
You. I almost said something. I'm like, nah, I'm not doing it. I don't know, man. I don't know.
But look, at the end of the day, Creighton was locked in on the back end, and just Nebraska wasn't. Walsh pitched outstanding, but you're right, it was a surprise.
I just think at no point did Creighton think they were going to lose. That's what I want to know why.
Brian Christopherson next.
Rogers and Benning will be We'll be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio. Here is Husker 24/7 senior writer, Brian Christopherson.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit of a circus act.
Brian Christopherson.
Well, I mean, that's pretty interesting.
Brian Christopherson.
I kind of enjoy that.
Here is Brian Christopherson.
Hey, back with you, 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock. Wrong letter, Andrew. 8 o'clock here on Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity
Everybody's shook. Folks just angry this morning.
See? We are live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club. Why? Why are we angry?
Well, you shouldn't have brought up that audio of Spencer Lee's mom wrestling. Now you know she will whoop your tail.
Did I spark? Did I spark a fight? I feel like talking about his mom is like talking to Mike Sauter. Like it just leads to something.
Yeah, dude is volatile. I'll give it to old Sauter.
I didn't look.
He's
up
mad
Spencer
about
Lee's
everything.
mom on Twitter because I was like, oh, I want to see like her.
Why she would
incident
put
again.
it
And then the first video that popped up was her wrestling in her living room and taking down, I don't know, probably.
I assume that was Spencer.
Was it Spencer?
Yeah.
Taking down Spencer, and she can wrestle. I'm not saying I was going to win. I just poke fun at the thing.
You get whooped.
Yeah, I would. I know I would.
It's all right.
And I get whooped by a lot of people. Let's bring in Brian Christopherson, who probably could whoop me too.
Not Mike Sauter.
Yeah, Mike Sauter I could take down because I really like pushing his buttons a little bit. But BC, welcome. Good morning.
Good morning, guys. How you doing?
Oh, you sound great, BC. Are you ready for Pro Day?
I guess so. I'm glad to hear you say I sound great. I don't know what to expect from Pro Day. I guess Garrett Nelson and Caleb Tanner are on my radar.
Side note, look at BC's jacket.
Should I look at BC's jacket?
Look at BC's jacket right now.
Yeah, he's a vest guy.
Yeah. What is he wearing, though? What's on the jacket?
I can't see that. What is it?
BC, what's on your jacket there?
Callaway?
Oh, look at you two.
Unbelievable.
Twinning. I just like the fact he's in a sleeveless vest. That's my gym. Oh, so BC, you're back to being everybody's favorite again, man. Even your wardrobe, even when you don't even try.
Yeah, we didn't even call each other.
So we got Tanner. We've got Nelson. And, of course, there's always going to be guys that are kind of on the fringe. Not that they aren't, but that will come back and work out too. How much of this do you think will get the Rule factor where Matt Rule can call in some favors and say, hey, you need to come see these guys?
That's interesting. Yeah, I would think he could be useful. Those guys. I know, he definitely thought a lot of Garrett Nelson. I remember when the decision was made that he wasn't coming back, Rule went out of his way to sort of say, this is a guy who represents, what Nebraska football should be all about and things like that. So I would bet he gives a pretty good endorsement. Obviously he doesn't know Garrett as well as the guys who coached him during his college career, but I think there's other guys too. Bill Bush would give a great endorsement on that. But your point is well taken, Damon. And one I wasn't even really thinking a lot about is, Rule having been in the NFL, having some of those links now. You wonder if that draws a few more NFL polos into the venue. I think they've had usually like 25 of them. So they do draw pretty well normally at Nebraska, but you'd love to see that become a thing where everybody feels like they have to be there, from the NFL to the CFL to whatever. And that hasn't always been the way it's been lately.
I'm going to bump off that question, BC, and ask this. If it isn't his connection to the NFL, how do you envision Pro Day going down if it's not as packed as, we'd hope it be, because they're a new staff and they just don't have the recognition nationally yet?
Yeah, well, I mean, I bet they'll draw at least 25 NFL teams. That seems to be the norm. So they'll be a good audience. And I think Nebraska has those players where they're maybe not top end draft picked, but the fringe guys, whether they could be drafted or they're free agents, are always very interesting to those scouts. They like, those matter as much to them and sort of their livelihood as those first, 3 rounders, because those guys, we aren't going to see like the head coach of these organizations there, but you're going to see guys who really care to go back to their team and say, hey, I got one for you. This could be my guy, like Nelson. This guy can do this or that, or Caleb Tanner could see him in this role for us, and that's meaningful. I think those guys who show up for the NFL teams who aren't highest on the food chain in their programs, but they want to give good endorsements and good recommendations on guys. So I'm optimistic for those guys. It was really interesting to me. Damon would have a better grasp probably of how he thinks he could fit at the next level, or if he can. But he was one of those guys who, sideline to sideline was pretty good, played about more football than any Husker there's ever been. I know his career at times left people wanting a little bit, but I thought he matured a lot as a young man the last couple of years of his career, and everybody said that. So hopefully that bodes well for him.
So if you're a guy like Trey Palmer, some of these receivers that are on the outside looking in, who throws today for Nebraska? Because as we've seen, there's always a method to the madness, and it matters who you're catching passes from. Who throws today, in your opinion?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, sometimes it's somebody I don't even recognize that's throwing to him. It used to be Joey
It's
Gans
like, hey, I
for a
got a
while.
guy.
Yeah, he can get out. Trust me. You're just gonna have to trust me on this. But yeah, Joe Gans used to do it some, and obviously he's not around, so I don't know who that's gonna be. Or if they can dip into one guys who's a quarterback here. I don't know if that what the rules are. I think they could.
Yeah.
But it seems like it's usually somebody else. But man, I would want somebody who's a little dialed in, who's been going through some winter work and stuff. If I'm one of those guys, also a good chance for those guys if they have the confidence. If you're a QB on their roster, is hey, you want to see something?
1,000%.
Imagine if Jeff Sims walked out and started throwing in front of the
You never know.
in front of the Nebraska media today. That might be interesting.
Well, as much as Matt Rule welcomes visitors throughout spring, maybe Cam Newton's coming here too. Who knows?
Hey, Cam, need a solid. You do me a solid.
Hey, BC, speaking of visitors, Coach Rule is welcoming, I should say, as a grandmother on Thanksgiving. He wants recruits on campus as much as possible, early and often. With all the high-profile recruits making their way to Nebraska this week and weekend, why do you think he values seeing the product so much when even he himself admits it may be a little disorderly at first as they develop a system?
Even if there is a little bit of disorder from the first week stuff where you're getting used to guys and sort of the setting you're at, I think there's so much confidence in this is how we operate, and put it up against other people. Let's see what you think. I know they are figuring some things out there, especially from the aspect of Tony White's role with the defense now, and he's obviously new to that staff. But most of those guys are very familiar with each other. And while Rule, he was humble and said on day one the coaches were still sort of like figuring out how to get to their stations at this particular spot they're at here in Nebraska. I think they feel like they know each other pretty well, and it's going to come off pretty well. And the feedback we got too from a couple of recruits was that it didn't actually look like a first practice to them. And I mean, I don't want to put it like a 16 or 17-year-old like the voice of that necessarily, just one or two of those guys. But they were there, and we weren't, and they said they'll look pretty crisp, for a first go around. So I think they also, they believe in the way they treat players as people. And, one of the things, Willis McGahee, the fourth, I talked to him a little bit. He was here Monday, and he's friends with Dwight Boodle and Corey Collier. And obviously those guys are still getting to know the staff too, because they've been here, a couple months. But they told him what you see on your trip is what they've experienced so far with this staff. It's real. It's not phony. That's what Evan Cooper told us too in January about Rule. He said, it was the way he said it that stood out to me. He said, he's not fake. He said, he's not one of those dudes, who's up, does like the fake bro hug or something like that. It's a genuine deal with him that has always come across. And I think there's a belief that will probably translate to people who are visiting as well.
God, you're so stinking perceptive, BC, because I think you're spot on. And I'll just validate you before my next question. Even having people that are recruited in our own house, it was like, hey, don't just come to junior day. Come any day of the week. Like, that's what we want you to see. That's where the real is the real. Junior Day is cool, right? We like it, but we'll let you into our house any day of the week. You need to come see how it is. That confidence, and it's maybe not even that they're always going to do things right or, be on point, but I think it speaks to your point earlier that he wants about as real can get, so he knows if Lincoln's a place that you can live.
Yeah, and also if you don't, I mean, that's what he said the one time was, I want you to be at the practice because I'm not going to change how I coach for anybody that's on site. So this weekend, when all the big timers are here and guys who are very good prospects, I expect from what we've heard, they're going to go about things just as they always have. And it's like, leave it. This is how we operate. And if it's not for you, that's probably good for you to know that now. And it's good for us to know that now, because there'll be guys that see that vibe and they're like, this is what I want in my coach. So, I think that what you're saying, Damon, is important too. Like, we've made such a big deal about the March 24th, 25th weekend, fair reason. But if people have been paying attention, Stone Saunders was a QB on campus yesterday. They had a couple guys here, more than a couple guys here on Monday. And I think it's just going to be a steady stream of that. Especially great for local prospects too, I think, and coaches, where you're like, yeah, you want to pop down on a Thursday and do what we're all about. Doors open. And I think that's going to go a long ways.
How smart is he? Because he likes Saunders. He likes Stone a ton. And he's a 2025. So if anything goes south with your top target, he's still good for the next couple of years at quarterback without really the threat of people being scared off of competition. And because you're not going to, let's say Saunders says, yes, he's a 2025 guy. I think it doesn't change the way that he can recruit. Whereas, and I saw it with T. Fraze, that changes the way that you can recruit if you have that guy on campus. Even though, full disclosure, BC, I don't want to play with guys that are afraid of competition, but sometimes it's not that easy. Sometimes they just want to go where they think they're going to have opportunity. Doesn't mean you're afraid of competition. So staggering this current crop of quarterbacks on his roster with a really good 2025 may be as good of a plan if you don't hit your home run target in 2024. At least he's got options.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, people should always keep that in mind. It always gets thrown out first, like, oh, that guy's scared to go here because he doesn't want to compete. Well, sometimes people are just using common sense at it with a university, and they're like, look at the numbers at this position. It's just like such a log jam. And, I could go in and knock some people out, but you do have to really be smart, and I'm sure the staff will be, with how numbers get distributed by class as they go forward. That's something they'll have to work out with this roster. Like, you don't want to be just heavy on in one class and then you're light on the back end. So that's something that you have to make sure they're right at all the positions.
DB just said it. We got that vibe on Monday, but transparency. Right. I mean, you're talking about players coming at any time and coach not changing his practice routine just to cater to a certain athlete so that they look fantastic. No, he's all about being transparent in that. And he's all about being transparent in regards to the media. If you didn't believe it now, BC, I mean, how refreshing is it to have a head coach in Lincoln that can just tell it how it is?
So far, I think it's been great, especially from a media standpoint, but I think it's good from the standpoint of how he's handled things so far. And I'm not one to tell him how to operate. He knows plenty well how he wants to do things. But like the other day on the first practice, when he just says, yeah, Anthony Grant's not here right now. He's suspended for this, and basically. And instead of letting around here where it can become a real sewing circle, with like, oh, I heard this, I heard that, and there's this game of telephone that goes on about every little thing, and it some things that aren't even that huge of a deal become such a big deal because because the head coach or somebody won't say something that you could just go out and put it to bed. And so I think, at least in the cases we've seen so far, that is refreshing to me. As he kind of went through, these are the guys who aren't here. We're updating our roster pretty constantly on the site. And it's going to be open to you guys. We'll see how that goes on as you get into the season and how he wants to handle injury information and stuff like that. There could be differences with that. But I thought on Monday, he didn't throw Anthony Grant under the bus either. He said he's a good kid and he's a guy who's just got to work some things out, and we'll see what happens. And there's a chance there. There's a chance for him to respond to that. But instead of letting everybody else tell the story, the head coach said this is what happened, and there you go.
In the latest version of he plays chess, I play checkers, I know they're very particular about videos and pictures and what's released. Like, it is highly, highly scrutinized. And so I've been watching, for the last, whatever it is, because I'm a child, right? Two guys that I was a little concerned about all of a sudden are back on social media at practice. Marcus Washington, Miles Farmer. Something or nothing?
I didn't notice that. So
see, the numbers are different. They're throwing you for a loop, but I think it's because I recognize their faces. Like, it appears to be their back, because as you can attest, kind of a quiet off season in terms of him bringing up their names.
Yeah, you didn't hear a lot about them. I hadn't read a ton into it, but that's a good eagle eye by you. And the hamster is spinning the wheel slowly in my head as I think about it. But Marcus Washington was a guy last year who was good for basically 2 or 3 catches a game. You'd set your watch to it. He would get you that. Maybe it wasn't more, but I think you saw the potential that he has another level in him in his final college season. Like, even at Georgia Southern game that Nebraska lost, if people remember the drive had when they took the lead, they went 96 yards or something like that. That was kind of Marcus Washington show. And he came up clutch with like a big time grab. I think it probably should have been a touchdown. They marked him down at like the 1 foot line when they reviewed it. But he's capable of those type of plays. I think he was trying to knock away maybe a perception that he had to work on the hands a little bit as the season went along. This is another opportunity with the new staff to do that. I'm sure with the new assistants too, there's a transition period of just getting used to this guy and, seeing if you sync up. But yeah, that's good to see both those guys, because Miles Farmer actually was playing better football, I thought, last year as the season went along. And I know he's taken some he's taken hard critique sometimes from people, but I thought it was by far his best football. And he'd be one of those guys who, if he left, there would be some fans who would act like it's no big deal. And I would think, it's kind of a big deal. That's a lot of experience position where you want it.
Yeah, and I don't know, man. I cheer for people, and those are two guys that I like personally, so I pay close attention to. But I understand, and I want to ask you this question. Change is difficult for everybody. Newcomers, old heads, coaches, players, administration. Coach Rule and this staff has come in, Sean Padden, Dr. Elsa. I mean, they got some really bright people. Who do you think has had the biggest learning curve? Players, the coaches, or Nebraska's current administration? Because everybody's had to change.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have a great answer. I don't know the administration people well enough, and we haven't really had access to them, so I don't know where their minds are at. So it wouldn't be fair for me to say. I know I've heard Dr. Elza do interviews, and I think there's obviously a huge adjustment from.
How about just having 39 staff? That's got to be 38. That's got to be different for the admin on the surface, right?
Right. And you're figuring out exactly, okay, what is your specific role here, and what does this person do, and how you feed off each other and not step toes. I'm sure there's some of that that's going on. I'd have to, talk more to those people to know like exactly where they're at. But I'm sure, I would guess though that, and it's a pretty safe guess that they're a little bit taken aback by just like how everything's under the microscope here and passionate it is. I think you can kind of think that about Nebraska football from a distance and like, oh yeah, they like it and stuff like that. And then you're actually in the area code and you're like, as they say, like a one state team. Now Creighton folks would argue with that right now with basketball, of course. But you know what I mean? Like the pro team the pro team within the state, just like I've always argued like per capita, the passion for Nebraska football is as big as you can find with any organization. It gets talked about probably more than about any team you can find. Like, I mean, if you go like the LA Tigers or somebody down there, they've got other things to talk about. They've got the New Orleans Saints and this and that. Around here, Nebraska is just constantly what's going on with that program? How are they operating? Oh, did you hear this guy left? And this is conversation in March. And so I would have to think that's an adjustment for all of them. To real quick to your question, though, I think it's the players probably because it's just I just think the level of detail, as you heard players discuss it, they sort of add in winter conditioning and some of the team concepts that were used struck them a little different. Not that the other staff didn't try their things in the offseason. They certainly did, and some of them were effective. But I do feel like if you listen to Ethan Piper on Monday, that guy is jazzed up about what's going on, like with this.
He's in a tough spot too, right? Like I tweeted that to somebody yesterday, BC. I'm like, he said we were kind of babied or whatever, but real time last year and the year before that, he only has his baseline. He you don't know any different really until you see different. So it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain without feeling like you're rolling guys.
Right. And it was just something in the way he spoke where he was so bouncy about like what we've been through. Either you're bought in or not after going through the winter that they were put through. And that had him excited because he was like, I know that I'm hitting spring football with guys that really want to be here, at this point and all that. And I'm not that obviously that was attempted to be established in the past, and it probably was with some degree of success, but there was a difference. There was a difference the way Piper talked about it with what's gone on in this year compared to the past. There's no doubt about it when you listen to it.
So good. BC.
Brian Christopherson, we appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much. We'll talk again next week.
Yep. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, B.
That is your senior writer for
Prompts another question I'm going to ask Sam.
Yep, and he's next. Sam McKewon is on deck. And something that BC said also prompted me to think of something. So it's a good thing we're talking
BC.
to Sam.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio. Here is the sports editor for the Omaha World-Herald, Sam McKewon.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Sam McKewon.
We're gonna throw the ball, and you just stand back there and throw it where you want to go. And that kind of thing.
Sam McKewon.
Are you guys going? Sure.
Now, Sam McKewon.
Therapy session round 2, this time with Sam McKewon. We just got off the phone with Brian Christopherson, but now it's time to talk to the sports editor of the Omaha World-Herald. That is Sam McKewon. He's on the line right now. Sam, good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. How are you?
Good. Sam, you're one of the few
feeling
people.
good.
You're one of the few people that can follow BC. He was exceptional, but considering you never disappoint and you're pretty secure, I don't ever imagine you saying, "Well, I don't want to follow that guy."
He's great. Love him.
Yeah.
Hey, Sam, my question to you is this, because I was thinking about this last night, and I don't know why it took me a day to really settle in on this, but how much did you look into the literal players that were chosen to talk to the media on day one of spring practice? Because some of the players that were in front of the camera were kind of obscure.
Well, one of them was. I mean, Heinrich Harburg has not played at Nebraska, and so I thought it was notable that he was brought out to talk to us. Obviously, he is interested in talking about the renewed energy in the program. I think he was a guy that kind of got buried in the depth chart. I don't know if he was in the doghouse last year or not, but there was some issue where he was so far down on the depth chart that they had a guy walk on who isn't even in the program anymore in front of him. Taking, garbage time snaps at Michigan. So, I think, there's probably some deliberation in Piper being picked. Piper obviously had a lot to say and said that over about the course of 10 minutes. Now, Piper's played a lot of football in Nebraska, and Luke Reimer's been a 2-year starter.
Right.
So, Reimer's a guy that, you want to put out there because he does a lot of the right things, and he says a lot of the right things, and he doesn't say too much. Luke's never been one to kind of go off script. So certainly I think there's a desire to talk about some of the cultural changes that have been made within the program and the value of that. And then, Gabe Irvin was an off-season star, and Matt Rule mentioned that. Now, Gabe doesn't say a ton. He keeps it pretty short and sweet. But yeah, I think you're seeing guys that they want to not only remain in the program, but also guys that they feel like have, bought in all the way to what's going on. Certainly Piper had a lot of interesting things to say in his comments that just indicate that things are different right now than they were in the previous 4 years.
So kind of like a lot of guys in the media that I like a lot more than they probably like me, which is okay. I've learned to become secure with that. I like Gabe Irvin more as a person and what he represents than I do as an actual runner because I haven't seen it yet. Right. Do you feel like I need to apologize for that, or is that just me keeping it 100?
No, I don't think you need to apologize for that. You know the position better than anyone. So you have your own, what you think is good at that position. And I think you should go ahead and say it. He hasn't played a lot. He's played basically 4 games of football where he was 100% healthy, 3.5 games because he got hurt, I think, in the Oklahoma game. In 2021. So he hasn't played the football healthy. What he did prior to that game wasn't what didn't fly off the screen. It just didn't. So I think he's got a lot of work to do. He's certainly put on some weight that may help him. Of the backs on that team, he is the guy that I think deserves a longer look. I think Ramir Johnson's going to get back to where he was. I don't know exactly what happened last year, but it
great call.
like he was treated very fairly. AJ Allen showed some stuff in the time that he was healthy. We'll see where he's at this spring. And I don't know. You kind of took over the radio call duties about halfway through the season, and that's when Anthony Grant started to get a little worse. Good. The game.
Well, I think it was the competition, Sam. It wasn't me jinxing him.
No, but he wasn't very good over the last half.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it drove me crazy
because they brought another running back into the room.
No, listen. Yeah, you're out. Listen, it drove me crazy. It's very hard to and I'm competitive, so I enjoy it, but it's very hard to paint the picture for fans, regardless of football acumen, where everybody can understand without me interjecting my, listen, man, if you just follow the goddamn block, that's a 6-yard gain instead of a 2-yard loss.
Right.
It's a little tough, man, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, he really did struggle down the back half of that season. And, if there's things about Ramir Johnson, there's things about any back, I suppose, that can get better. But Ramir hits holes. He would, he'd stick his nose in there even though he's 180 pounds or whatever. And if you go back and, watch the Michigan 2021 game and maybe a few others, Ramir Johnson's not afraid to put his nose in there and just run hard. And I felt like Anthony Grant stopped doing that. I didn't really understand why, or why he was trying to break 40-yard runs on every play. But so that position's changed a lot. And I know they like Gabe Irvin, but yeah, we need to see what he can do. And then they need to recruit an elite back. They just, not that they don't have one now. I think Anthony Grant was very good over the first half.
I love that. I love that room though.
You got to recruit one or two more guys.
Yeah.
You do. You just. Somebody that's really, really special. I don't know if they have that guy in mind or not.
Let me ask you this, and I know we're going to get you on the back half, so if you don't finish when you hear the bed music, That's cool, and I appreciate you sticking around for the next segment. But let me ask you something. On the heels of Ethan Piper talking, and he said, sometimes I feel like we were a little bit babied last year. I was talking to BC about who has the biggest adjustment. Is it Trev to Rule to the players to Rule? Big staff, it's new, per diem's different, budget's like a lot's different for everybody. Wearing the same thing, no single-digit numbers. How much is it our fiduciary responsibility, Sam, to be cool knowing that people are coming from different benchmarks? Piper has the last couple of years. Rule has his deal. Trev and the admin team has this deal. When we're hearing stories and players are talking, how much responsibility do we have in the media to say, hey, listen, it's going to sound like comparing and contrasting, and that's okay. It's just that we have to understand as the consumers, don't judge. It's just different benchmarks, different baselines. Because I think that's what it is.
Yeah, I agree.
Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, I think there's going to be there's going to be some circumstances where people say things or do things you made the comment about Trev having to adjust the rule, and I thought that was really interesting.
He does.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. Well, I mean, Rule actually made, he said this kind of under the fly in his press conference on Monday, but he said, I really appreciate the administration letting us fly into Kansas City and fly back out.
Sam.
And what he's saying in that moment is, we went down to Kansas City to talk to a coach's clinic, and they had to pay a bunch of money for us to go down there, and we did it anyway.
Sam, you're brilliant. Like, see, I hear those things, right?
Yeah.
That's different. Like I said, I just kind of mumbled and stumbled over per diem, like little things that coaches want to do to win back recruiting regions take money and commitment, things that other staffs haven't done before. So it's like, wait, you want to do what? We've never done this. No, boss, you just have to trust me. Okay, I'll make it happen. Well, what's taking so long? I don't know, Matt. We've never done it before, right? Like, that is so astute. It's silly.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me to watch. He's very aggressive. That's obvious. He wants things, and he now has the money to execute the full vision that he has in his mind. And it's like giving a director who's a good director of a movie, a $50 million budget instead of a $10 million budget. What's the guy going to do when he's got a full budget? How's he going to change his approach, and how much better can he recruit compared to what he was doing based on what he's been given? And the staff around him is huge. He's got a ton of people that are all sort of doing these specific things. And you know what? Nebraska's got the money to pay for it. I'm sure it's a little challenging for Trev, and they're going to have to pay it off with winning games.
Yeah.
But they're spending the money. Yeah.
Sam, stick around. We will continue our conversation next. More with Sam McKewon. If you have a question, send those in too. Maybe we'll pass those along to Sam as well. It's Coffee and Cream.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Hey, back with you on Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers, joined again by Sam McKewon, the sports editor of the Omaha World-Herald at SW McKewon, OWH on Twitter. Sam, we appreciate you rejoining us for this segment. We know you're busy, heading down to Pro Day. But once again, welcome back.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you. I will not be at Pro Day today.
Oh, you won't? I'm sorry for assuming.
The World-Herald's all-state basketball photo shoot is today. I'm going to be at that.
Oh, now that, ooh, boy, do I want to pick your brain.
Yeah, you don't want to pick my brain.
Sam,
I'm not an expert on that, but I am going to be at the photo shoot. Well, now I will say, it'll be on Sunday, and one of the 10 is out of town. So it'll be kind of clever the way we reveal that person. But yeah, it'll be good. It'll be good. We're looking forward to it.
Huh. Now I'm distracted. Hey, let me. So Sam, I'm not just gonna keep bragging because I think people have heard me for years. Know that I think a ton of kind of your approach and measure and aptitude and all sorts of other things. I think one of the things that's interesting with this staff is Coach Rule said something the other day. He goes, I know people will say this and they'll say that, and they're like, oh man, I'm gravitating to this, and oh, this is all I ever wanted to hear. And he said, you have to be careful because in 3 years, you'll hear me say the exact same thing. There are just some core things that I believe in, that I believe everybody should know, that I will always talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Whose responsibility is that to receive and understand that information? His or ours?
Well, that's a good question too. Yeah, I mean, part of what we will do as we cover things going forward is we'll have a better understanding of where he's coming from with stuff, and as we have that understanding, he probably won't have to quite say it as much. He'll probably say things like, "Well, you know where I'm coming from, and you know what I think," and then he'll kind of repeat that, and then that'll sort of be synthesized within the coverage. As time goes on, our questions will get better and better. And the reason that they'll get better and better is because we'll have a better understanding of not only what he's looking for, but what his players are going to say and things like that. And it'll help us. They're not going to be perfect. They're going to struggle. They're going to have bad games. Life won't always be exactly what they want it to be. So we'll understand contextually how to ask questions and how to sort of probe into that, when that time comes. So yeah, I mean, he definitely has certain beliefs and certain frameworks that he likes to impress on people, and that's where we're at. And it'll be interesting to have that conversation over time. And we'll see what kind of success they have and all the rest.
Sam, I was talking to DB on Monday after the presser, and when we heard Jake Appleget's name get brought up, he looked at me and he goes, "Man, you were right." And I said, "Actually, I think Sam was right."
That was unbelievable.
Because Sam wrote the article when they were talking about, bringing back the fullback, and you thought, hey, if there's anybody that could make a position change, why not Jake Appleget? And I think that was you, right? That said that. I have that correct. Okay, so I'm happy I can put credit where credit is due here. But position change has been a big storyline in the early goings of spring. And, as much as people don't want to admit it, maybe even Harburg himself, a position change would likely be his best chance at seeing the football field faster. So with you getting Appleget right, the change from defense to offense, with other potential position changes out there in spring, do you truly believe we'll see, I'll just throw a number, we'll set the 2.5. I'll set the number at position changes heading into the fall. Do you think we'll see over or under that number?
Over. Yeah. I think we'll see more. Now it may be from one position to another on one side of the ball. But I think you're going to see more. Certainly the tight end position has already been, remade. Bonner's moving sort of from receiver. I think you're going to see some changes on the defensive side of the ball. You're going to see some players leave on the defensive side of the ball. They have to. I mean, and you're probably going to see some players leave a receiver too. But not all the guys that are there right now are going to be there in 2 or 3 months on the defensive side of the ball. They just have too many defensive backs. So, and in my opinion, they have too many scholarship linebackers too. They're going to have to figure out what they want to do with those guys, and those guys are going to have to figure out what they want to do with themselves, whether they want to stay in Nebraska or go somewhere else. So, yeah, I think you're going to see more changes. Appleget it was a better offensive player in high school than, in my opinion, than he was defensive, and he was very good on both sides, but he was very good receiver. And so that'll be an interesting one to potentially watch. I don't know if Chase Androff's going to grow into a tackle as opposed to being a tight end. I think that's possible. They already moved Brody Tagaloa. Tagaloa's got to find a spot. The defensive line coach a couple coaches ago didn't exactly recruit the position as well as maybe we thought he would or could. And so I think Tagaloa is a little bit of a tweener. There's probably going to be some edge guys that move to different spots or linebackers who move to edge. They're going to have an emphasis defensively on just absolute speed, and in having that emphasis, it's going to take some time to figure out exactly what they want to do. That's going to be a journey. The thing with the defense is just going to take some time. It won't be an automatic transition. You heard Rule say that he needs to get used to Tony White. Tony Knight needs to get used to him. Rule will say this a lot, where he'll say, I try to be quiet and I try to learn. What I take from that is that Matt Rule can have an opinion on literally everything that's happening on a football play, and he's had to train himself not to share that right away, and to kind of process through where he is most helpful as a head coach. And it's not necessarily throughout the entire process. When you're in management, you have to learn. It takes time to learn how to be the most helpful you can be, and that means not necessarily micromanaging X, Y, and Z. So I think he's learning through that process and trying to figure out, okay, I hired this defensive coordinator because I like who he is as a person. I like how he connects to his players, and I like the potentiality of his scheme. Now I need to let this guy kind of do what he does within the context of a staff that I hired. So that's all. That's going to take some time and be challenging.
Unbelievable. Sam, full disclosure, have you and I ever had these conversations before?
No.
Have you had these conversations with Matt Rule before?
No.
Let me tell you something. This is like, oh man, DB's still in love with Sam McKewon. No, listen. Do you know Coach Rule doesn't enjoy being in position group meetings? He'll try to find something else to do to preoccupy his time because he does not want to overstep or talk too much in those coordinator meetings. He is no, like, I have no idea how you knew that, but he's learning to pull back the reins in positional meetings so he can empower his coaches to be who he's hired them to be. And he bites his knuckles to do so.
Yeah, I'm sure it's challenging. And part of it's because he has the ability to process very quickly, and he's an external processor. And when people are external processors, they just talk it out. And I'm that way too, incidentally, but like they just talk through. And there's a lot of people, including some coaches, who really struggle with external processors because they hear everything that the external processor says and don't process it as process. They process it as, dictums, the directives. And I think that's the area where Rule will just have to work through. And again, I think it's going to take time on defense. I think there's an understanding that it's going to take time on defense. I'm more interested in the offense because I think there you've got a quarterback's coach who wasn't going to be the quarterback's coach initially and now is. And you've got other situations where it's just a little bit, it'll be interesting and a little bit complex. We're going to have to watch that and walk through it a little bit and see how it goes.
Sam, say the season rolls around and there's an injury with a high caliber athlete or some type of major incident that takes place with this team, with this program. Do you think we can expect the same? And I keep using transparency because I'm like over the moon with how transparent Rule is. Do you think we can expect the same type of transparency in those moments that was given in the opening spring press conference?
Well, we'll see. Once you get into the game, I think you're dealing with some, you get into the season, you're dealing with protecting players and their emotions. I think he's very comfortable with, being very honest and transparent about cultural standards. Like Anthony Grant suspended because he's not upholding a portion of the culture that we really believe in. I don't know if that's going to be when they make mistakes on the field, because he's actually trying to dial down the amount of criticism that the kids feel and hear based on what's going on with the program. So I think you're going to see more circumspection as you get into the season because he's going to want to protect the players a little bit.
Sam, give me one off the radar guy that you kind of follow and know that you think fits this staff's personality to make an impact that we aren't talking about.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have talked about just about everybody, though. So
not really. I threw out Booker the second, and people thought I was nuts. But that's just because I know him and his dad. But Booker Jr., his personality fits this staff. He fits Coop. So there are guys out there that people aren't talking about.
Yeah, there's probably going to be one of those defensive backs who really warms to Evan Cooper, who didn't necessarily connect with Travis Fisher. I don't know exactly who that is, but maybe it's Booker. Yeah.
Sam, we appreciate your time. Thanks so much. We'll talk again next week.
Fantastic, Sam. Thanks.
We got games and we got the six-pack next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
Welcome back to the show. We've got the Sports Six-Pack coming your way in a few moments. We've also got two for you. So if you want to play, give us a call, 888-638-4876. We are jam-packed this segment because we have Kevin Sjuts on deck and Kyle Boone in the hole to close out the show about college basketball alongside Damon Benning and Andrew Rogers. DB, you asked Shane, or Shane, you asked Sam a question and he responded and you were like, wow, how did you know that? Like, how did you get to knowing that, hey, like you haven't talked to Rule, you haven't talked to me about this in a separate time, but how did you know that he doesn't sit in with his...
He just doesn't want to be overbearing like that,
position groups, right? So I was about to say during the break, I'm like, hey, and you're like, save it. Before I could say anything, you're like, save it. And here's what I was going to say. So if you go back and listen to Coach Rule, not in the spring press conference. If you go back to, just go to Nebraska's YouTube page and you don't look at the spring practice one, but you go back to his previous press conference when he spoke for like 27 minutes, 28 minutes. Go to about the 22:50 mark of that interview.
What month?
This would have been the one right before spring break.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So like his most recent.
Okay, so that
one,
Monday is that Monday presser.
Right.
Okay.
Right before the spring practice one. So if you just track in the Matt Rule interviews,
20.
Go back to about 22:50. Rule will say that he practices what he preaches. And what he means by that is You have to learn before you can teach.
Oh yeah, I remember that was the go-to. I love that line.
And so when he said that, though, it was all based.
Did you see when I wrote that down?
I did not see that, no. But when he said that, it was all based on him not sitting in Tony White's room because he felt he would say something, and he doesn't know the defense or system well enough yet to be able to teach. He needs to learn first. So he's not getting involved until he thinks his words are necessary. Yep. That's like the terminology he used.
Great call.
Priority is for everyone to get on the same page, right? With this staff, everyone needs to get on the same page. So what's he going to do? He's going to sit back and he's going to admire, because if he gets involved, now his decisions are going to outweigh Tony White's, and he doesn't even know what Tony White's going to say yet.
Man, I'm just kind of like lobbying for all these guys, and I try not to be. It's a hard balance for me, right? Because I love Nebraska, and I love my kids, and I love other kids in the community, in particular. Like, let's say, for example, hypothetically, I'm Team Tyson Terry, right?
Hypothetically,
I don't
think you've ever gone out on a limb like that.
Hypothetically, I'm Team Tyson Terry, I'm Team Christian Jones, and I'm Team Caleb Benning, right? So I ask a lot of questions about defense, and he told me he's like, DB, listen, like I get it. People talk, 3-3-5-3. He's like, listen, we're about fits, and what I appreciate about Tony White is yeah, he's got to kind of get to know my style and kind of what I demand, but his quiet confidence and his belief in what he's doing, he's like, you got to remember, like, I let him bring 3 of his guys, right? Like, that was a prerequisite. But the biggest factor that let me know that I got the right guy is Dino Babers wanted him to say goodbye to his guys at Syracuse. I said that I kind of vaguely referenced this yesterday. Mm-hmm. He goes, that let me know that I need to trust my gut and honor the fact that this is why I want him, for not for the system, but for the person he is, because he puts kids first. He said, do you know how many coaches? He's pumped up now. Don't say goodbye to their kids. They disappear in the night. There's no statement when they leave. He goes, I'm a big believer in doing things the right way. So that's a guy that I know I need to sit back and listen to and take some things from, because his previous stop wanted his kids to hear from him before he left. He said, do you know what the power is in that? And I'm just like, I'm trying to give the analogy, right? Like, would I give a chance to say goodbye to a place that I'm leaving because it meant so much to them that I was leaving, and everybody was cool with that I'm taking a different job? I just kind of imagine what position you have to put yourself in to be like that.
And what does Rule make? What does Rule set whenever he gets? What's the F word whenever he gets to his destination? He is building a
foundation,
but also a family.
Yeah.
Right? And you're not just going to leave your family just on a moment's notice without saying goodbye, right? You've been building something for so long. You don't want to just dip out and be like, hey, it was fun while it lasted.
Deuces.
Right? No, you're gonna sit down with everybody and be like, hey, this is why.
It's just fascinating.
Shane, let's play that intro. Sports Six-Pack time.
You want to do the Sports Six-Pack? I don't have the questions yet from you.
Well, just go ahead and play the intro, and I'll send the questions.
Dear Old Nebraska Brew, the official beer of Nebraska alumni.
It's a great intro for the Zipline Brewery, and as our guy Cam said, the Dear Old Nebraska Brew is one of the best, one of the lightest, one of the perfect Nebraska beers for. It's the official alumni beer, if I'm correct, and it's just perfect to pair at a Husker basketball game or at your favorite tailgate. But they also have the Copper Alt, Dope, Juicy IPA, and Mosaic. They have a lot. Whatever tickles your fancy. Check out Zipline for your favorite beer.
Question number 1.
Who will be the one starter that makes the biggest leap this spring from last year?
What about Malcolm Hartzog?
Could potentially play a new position too.
I liked how he was playing down the stretch. The secondary was dwindling, and he stepped up in a big way. I like I like Ethan Nation for the same reasons, but I like the guy that's undersized and undervalued to his opponent because of his size. And I feel like that guy plays with a lot of heart, a lot of tenacity, and he's going to prove that
not a fake tough guy either.
Right. I just because I'm small doesn't mean I can't maul you. I'm going to go with Hartzog.
That's a good pick. Graylin Arnold is a guy that played at Baylor, played what they called the field safety. And it's a comp that he's given me to look at for the dude in my house, right?
Oh, okay, there.
Right. And it may be something that Hartzog does because he's kind of a hawk.
Mm-hmm. He is a ball hawk.
I like that because he's fresh in my brain. I feel like you guys are kind of like watching me because stuff is it's kind of weirding me out, but Sam's really weirding me out right now. Hartzog's a good one. I'm gonna take a leap of faith.
It's what you need to do with this question.
I'm going with Teddy Prohaska.
Nice.
One starter, not a very many times starter that will take a huge leap.
Injury hasn't helped.
He may be a little too big, but he can't shrink his height. But I think they understand his mobility and mechanics and how to best utilize that. I'll take Teddy P.
Another good pick.
Question number 2.
What would be the bigger story, Hurley to Providence or Micah Shrewsbury to Notre Dame? That's Bobby Hurley.
One more time.
What would be the bigger story, Bobby Hurley to Providence or Micah Shrewsbury to Notre Dame?
Shrewsbury to Notre Dame because Hurley's not going to Providence. I don't think he can go to a private institution and
you don't think he'd want to go to
and reap the financial benefits that I think at this stage in his career he's at. But Notre Dame can pay Shrews.
I think that would make Bobby Hurley the bigger story then if you don't think he's going to go there. If it happened.
I'll take Shrews, but it could be a couple more jobs that come open. See what happens in Arizona with Lloyd.
Man. Could you imagine Hurley in the Big East?
You got a lot of non-recruiting boo birds that are mad about Lloyd's in game. And Oregon may all of a sudden come open.
Hey, if Hurley squared entered the Big East, I don't know, man. Bobby Hurley, he's kind of nuts.
Oh, you think? I'll take Shrews to ND if that happens.
Question number 4.
Oh, did I pass up 3?
You passed up 3. You're already hammered.
Okay, sorry.
Lightweight.
Do the guys, this is question 3, do the guys think Antoine Davis will be cheated out of a chance at breaking Pistol Pete's scoring record? And what do you think about Jason Maravich's response to all that?
Well, first of all, Davis has been there for like 34 years. Pete couldn't play as a freshman. He was only there for 3. The fact that they're even comparing these two, I think, is laughable. So anything Davis related, no disrespect to a guy that's played 5 years soon. It's Pete and then everybody else. Maravich is untouchable.
I would say, outside of the literal record, I would say he's probably cheated because the CBI wouldn't let them in. Like, it's a pay-to-play tournament. Like, why wouldn't you take the 27-5 from him? You know he's garnering some national attention just based on that record. But because, for those that don't know the story, because of some random emails that have come through saying like, hey, we don't want this, we don't want that, you just go with that. Like,
Yeah,
I don't like the
but
way
yet
that went.
they'll let Eastern Kentucky and Southern Utah go 108, 106 in 3 overtimes because you think people are interested.
And I'm not saying that game's interesting. I'm just saying the record is
general.
interesting. But what I was going to say is, based on Maravich's comments, I actually agree with what he said. Are you really gonna like make a case for a team that was like 14 and 19?
Yeah.
Like if they were, let's just say 19 and 14 or whatever it is, if you just reverse the order, I think that would be.
It's how I feel about Koufax and Gibson and Gale Sayers. Not the longevity of some greats, but so good at what they did in a certain amount of time. You should be so secure in your accomplishments. You don't care what anybody else does. That's how I feel about Maravich playing 3 years.
Question number 4.
Here's the real question, number 4. I picked a perfect bracket. Just some teams didn't live up to the expectations. As you look at who's left, not much. Who's making up the Final Four?
Come on, man. Like off the top
UCLA, Texas, K-State, and Creighton.
Wow. I'll go Michigan State. UCLA, because that's my pick, even though that means it's at Gonzaga's expense. Texas and Bama.
So 2 different.
Yeah.
We're same on the right, if you're looking at the bracket literally, and different on the left.
That's tough.
Man, if Creighton can shoot like they did in game 2, they can beat Bama.
I'll be cheering for Creighton because I'm all in on Coach Mack.
Shane?
Question number 5.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how much impact does USC moving to the Big Ten go into Dylan Raiola's commitment?
I've been asking this for a month, and I don't have an answer. Just the fact that you'd play against a team you potentially spurned either way, Nebraska to SC or SC to Nebraska, matter.
I think so. I think it does matter.
It could. Because for whatever the reason, Georgia and Oregon aren't out of it yet.
I feel like you have to keep Georgia around.
Do you?
Yeah, national champion, back-to-back, right? I feel like you want to just keep that hat on your table. Oregon is interesting.
They're laying in the cut, aren't they?
On Oregon, I mean, you
get a
lot of perks at Oregon.
They are laying in the cut. So you'll figure out in a hurry if it's a business decision. But Lanning is highly, highly respected in that family.
I'd actually say it's a 9 on a scale of 1 to 10. It may be high, but I'm going to say 9. I think it has a big impact on his commitment.
Yeah, I'll say 5. Lukewarm.
Question number 6.
This one looks tough. The longest drought in college basketball comes at Nebraska's expense. Never winning a game at the NCAA tournament. Looking ahead to next season, how concerned are you about the roster turnover, losing 2, if not 3, of your key guys, and will Fred still be the coach? Will Fred be the coach to end this drought?
I think there is some validity to the concern next year because you just don't know. You had a brand new roster halfway through the year than from what you did at the start of the year, but you still had 2 of your core guys that were a part of that. If Tominaga does not return, you're going to have to find some scoring. You're going to have to find some size. You're going to have to find a facilitator. You have to find a lot. It's all brand spanking new. So that concerns me. Will Fred be the coach to end the drought? I will say no.
I'm probably going to agree. Because I wasn't even, and I know what people said, I know what Coach Hoiberg, I know what Trev said about, Fred coming back and things like that, but things change. It's so fluid all the time. And listen, those athletic directors talk, and they're in all sorts of those meetings. And all of a sudden, some other names pop up as like potential candidates. And I think it can kind of get you to reconsider. And maybe it's not this year, but maybe it's pretty soon. Like, I mean, if a Darren DeVries becomes available from Drake, does that change the way you think about Coach Hoiberg?
I think so.
See, those are the things that are pretty fluid, right? So all these guys they're in on these coaching searches, and hey, such and such is taking a call, or nah, he's staying put, or he's good where he is. Don't make a run at him. Oh, but you know what? He's interested. And it's like, oh, really? I was kind of dead set. But could we get this guy? Depending on who it is. I just use DeVries as an example because he keeps making NCAA tournament appearances. And with Tucker comes a lot of relationships with some other local players. Maybe that's something you take a look at.
Well, you had me thinking. You got me really thinking now.
You know me. I don't sleep. It's a cousin of death.
Literally and figuratively. Shane?
Now one of Damon's favorite games and one of Shane's favorite games.
Is this the game where I have to write stuff down?
Well, maybe not so much Shane.
Yes, Shane. This would be the game.
Yes, it's 2 for you.
All right, let's do it.
Wow.
Oh boy.
Do you like the nasally whole thing that I do for Shane?
I sure do.
Yeah,
And I don't know how do you
morning?
do that without pinching your nose?
I don't know. It's just I've been around Shane for a quarter of my life.
You've been practicing.
Literally a quarter of my life. I've been around this little dude. I got it down pat.
It's 2 for you time presented by Dingman's Collision Center. Dingman's is your one-stop shop for all your car needs. And if you need your car repaired, go over to Dingman's. They have an awesome give-back program to go along with it, where you, the customer, get to choose who Dingman's ends up donating to. They've been in the business for over 25 years, family-owned, family-run. This is Dingman's Collision Center, and it's 2 for you. Let's play. Shane, you're playing this one.
All right,
okay. I don't think you got to play last week, and you're going to play against your good
This
pal.
is like free money. I don't know why folks wouldn't beat this up.
888-638-4876. You could win up to $40 at Hail Varsity Club. But yeah, it is low on the caller log when it comes to
unless you're Bent Trent.
Yeah, unless you're Trent, because Trent probably has eaten here for free at least once a week.
I tell you what, if somebody wants to give me $20 every week,
I'll call in. And you don't have to do much, right? You pick 2 people, and they do all the work for you. DB, you're playing with Shane.
Let's go, Shane-O.
All right.
You guys ready?
Yep.
Shane, you got music?
Yeah, I can play some music.
Well, I think that's part of the deal, isn't it?
All righty.
No.
A condiment.
Do you know what that is, Shane?
A condom? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
No, he didn't.
All right, go to the next question.
Are you sure?
Can you imagine Shane squirting out lambskin on his plate?
Oh, wow.
What? Pardon?
Lambskin on the plate, really. Is that what we call it nowadays?
Oh, stop. Question number 2.
I can't even believe you said it.
An infraction in hockey.
Okay.
That's a tough one, but we'll go.
Not really. There's only 2.
A round of the March Madness tournament.
Tough one.
No, there's only 2. It'll be fine.
You're an idiot. God, this would have been great to have a caller. We should have my man Jay hit us up.
We should. Last one, something you'd see on the American flag.
Okay.
Tough. I see what you did there. Could be either or. All right, I'm ready.
All right.
Will I be mad at Shane?
Playing for pride right now. A condiment. 3, 2, 1.
Ketchup.
You won't be mad just yet. An infraction in hockey. 3, 2, 1.
High
Tripping.
sticking.
High sticking. What was your other one outside of tripping?
Either hooking or tripping.
Mm-hmm.
What would you have said?
I probably would have said tripping, but before I said hooking, I probably would have said roughing.
Yeah. I just was looking for one word.
Mm-hmm.
Is mine not an infraction?
Yours
It is.
Okay.
It counts.
You said just 2, so that's
Because I think
meant
the
there's
easy
2 answers.
2 easy ones
Right.
where I would
Gotcha.
have gone with either
was like,
tripping or hooking.
Okay.
Right. Remember when he said closet and the answer should have been under the bed because it's easier? Oh,
yeah,
wait.
it's just
All right.
but funny guy.
A round of the March Madness tournament. 3, 2, 1.
Final four.
That's the right answer.
All right.
I
so
thought Shane was going to say
we're,
Sweet 16.
We're 2 out of 3.
And that would have won money.
What if he would have said Elite 8, which no one would have said?
Round of 64.
Field of 68.
The play-in game.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd have lost my mind.
And something you'd see on the American flag. 3, 2, 1.
Stars.
Nice work, boys. 3
Wow.
out of 4. Shane, you may be getting better at this game.
Air depth. Oh,
Thank
Lord.
you, Jessica Cootie.
Yeah, thanks, Jess. Courtesy of the Husker Radio.
Thank you,
Network.
too, for you. And Dingmans, thank you, Sports Six Pack and Zipline Brewing. Coming up next, Kevin Sjuts here on Coffee and Cream.
Clear.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning. We'll be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Welcome back. It is Coffee and Cream with my main man, Andrew Rogers. I always want to say at Andrew Rogers TV, but it's not just that. He's like a real person. He's sitting next to me. He's just Andrew Rogers, live from the H&H Chevrolet studio. Listen, this is me, and I believe this near and dear. Right? Workers' comp. Confused about options? You know, you need a workers' comp claim. Put your trust in the team at Dyer Law to help ensure that your rights are protected and you get the settlement you deserve. That's a big deal, right? I've got a really, really good friend that's what he does for the state in Colorado. And workers' comp is a real thing. Call the team at Dyer Law at 402-393-7529 or visit Dyer.law to chat with trusted professionals about your workers' compensation claim. That's Dyer.law.
Great work there, DB. Appreciate you bringing us back there. And now let's bring in Kevin Sjuts, who's on the line. Kevin is the sports director at 1011 in Lincoln. Kevin, good morning.
Good morning, boys.
I love his energy.
Is he ever? Do you watch his social media account? He never complains. The dude just stays glass half full.
Well, I'm glad I filter it pretty well then.
Kevin, I made the assumption with Sam, and I don't want to make it with you, but I think I'm right when I say it. You're going to Pro Day, correct?
Yeah, we're going to be there here in a short little bit.
And what are your expectations? What are you envisioning Pro Day to look like this year?
Well, from what I understand, it doesn't sound like a ton of guys are going to be working out today.
Yeah.
My expectations are fairly low. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of pizzazz or buzz. The guys that went to the combine did a fairly nice job. So I think it's more of the interview portion that's going to mean a lot for some of the dudes that are going to be over at the Hawks Championship Center.
So, Kevin, how much of that do you think we could see any immediate dividends, like kind of the rule factor where because of so many connections and how well liked he is within the National Football League? And I know some Carolina Panther fans would lead you to believe he isn't, but ton of great relationships that it could be he could make that call on what guys need to come and be and see what guys in Lincoln.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, it helps. It doesn't hurt in any way, shape, or form. It kind of reminds me of when Fred Hoiberg was hired at Nebraska with his connections to the NBA and how well connected he is in the front offices with the different NBA organizations, that everybody on the roster essentially had a chance to maybe get in connection with one of the NBA teams if they wanted to. And I think that's going to be the same case with Nebraska's football players, given Matt Rule's experience in the NFL.
Kevin, I want to ask you a listener question here as we get it on YouTube. It was directed first at DB and I, and we can chime in, but I want to ask you.
Ask smarter people.
Yeah, I want to ask the smartest person, not in the room, but we'll say going over the airwaves right now. Diffuse the argument that NU football was, and in quotes, not that bad last year. They were close, end quote. So will wholesale changes, as we are seeing, going to set the program back?
Well, can we read that again? That was a lot there.
Right. So diffuse the argument that NU football was not that bad last year. They were close. So will wholesale changes, as we are seeing, going to set the program back?
Well, I don't know that I can diffuse the argument that they weren't that bad last year. And they were just there's the EKG up, down, in the middle. We saw everything. The one thing that this coaching staff, I think, can do is just get this team to calm down. And I feel like in the fourth quarter, not just last year, but in 2021, that when things got chaotic, they got outside of themselves. And I think Matt Rule has already identified that. And he's just trying to build a culture in which the team remains poised, composed, and when the game is on the line, that they have strong belief they can get it done. And that doubt is completely gone. And Rule's even said as much many, many times that if you look at the fourth quarters, different things happened. So he wants to have his team trained to perform well at the end of games.
So, Kevin, let me ask you something. If you're kind of I don't know what side of the fence you're on. So I would always say, listen, if you've been close for 3 or 4 years and you're in this many one-score games and it's kind of the same things, then how close are you really? Do you look at it the other way? Like, okay, listen, they've been this and couldn't get over the hump. So maybe a new set of eyes will yield different results.
No, I say a loss is a loss. Doesn't matter what it looks like. So even, in basketball, sometimes if you lose by 3, you still lost. Yeah, you were close, but it doesn't matter in the record. What's the difference between a 3-point loss and a 10-point loss? Sometimes we can get so caught up in those final 5 minutes. But what's the totality of everything? Is your team good? Is it not good? Is it average? I don't know that I'm in the camp to say that Nebraska's been so close. They just need a little change, and the results are going to come with it.
Especially over time, right?
Yeah, it's everybody uses the phrase bugaboo. I think that's a cop-out, in my opinion. They're snake bitten. No, I don't want to be too brash here, but they lost games, period.
Yeah. No. You
can really put the magnifying glass on the fourth quarter, but at the end of the day, look at the record.
Kevin, we were talking at the beginning of the show about Husker baseball. I want to change gears here and touch on your variety. And we were talking about games midweek, early mid parts of March versus later on in the season, if you can find a way to fit it in during Big Ten play, those one-off games. But at the same time, beside the lack of people, we'll just say, at the game, the biggest issue for Nebraska has been, who do you bring in? Like, who can you rely on this pitching staff? And at the beginning of the year, we addressed it and said, it's early. Now we're getting pretty close to the start of Big Ten play, and it's becoming a little more of a thing. What do you kind of see as the biggest issue going on with this team, especially after watching them blow the 9th inning lead?
It's the bullpen. It was the issue in the opening weekend at San Diego, and it was a big issue last night. I mean, there are many ways you can look at what unfolded on Tuesday night at Charles Schwab Field. Even in terms of when Nebraska put somebody in the bullpen to start warming up. Sears didn't have it, but I don't know how much time he had to get loose and get his mind right that he was coming into a really close game on a Tuesday night. Guys, I will say this. To answer your question, Andrew, I think the relief pitching is the biggest issue. The biggest takeaway I had out of Tuesday's game between Nebraska and Creighton is Nebraska and Creighton is not even a shadow of what it used to be. If that game is a hotly contested rivalry game, I don't think either team puts themselves in a spot where it's like, oh my goodness, we got to find somebody to try to shut this thing down. No, like you would throw one of your best pitchers regardless of the circumstance because that game means so much. That was my big takeaway, is that like if you rewind to when that thing was at its peak in between 2005 and 2010, tell me that they were going to go deep into the bullpen to try to hope to have somebody who wasn't really ready to shut that thing down. No, if it means something, you make sure your closer's on the diamond, or if not your closer, your setup guy, or heaven forbid, you get a starter that's maybe going to throw on Sunday. Just tell them, give me three outs, get this thing done. We got to win this game.
Kevin, it's interesting because I'm looking at you mentioned like the consistency in terms of what has ailed Nebraska. How much of what you think? Because if it's football, we wouldn't have any problem saying it out loud. We'd say, "Oh, we don't like Coach Whipple," or "Oh, we're upset with Coach Chinander," or "Oh, hey, we need to talk about Coach Riley needing to make defensive coordinator changes." Does the Childress looming over Nebraska's pitching staff and Jeff Christie? Is that the elephant in the room that we're not willing to address, or because we know that guys like Childress are available, we're more apt to say, gosh, you know what? What are we going to do with Coach Christie? You know what I mean?
Still there, Kevin?
Oh, we might have.
Oh, I heard something on the phone.
Guys, yeah, no, sorry about that. That's a complex question, DB. I mean, yeah, you could maybe look at there are guys, and we don't want to do them dirty, but at the end, you got
because they're our guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you hate to say it, but that's happened maybe more times than Nebraska would like beyond the sport of baseball.
Yeah.
Scott Frost and his staff. I mean, it made it uncomfortable. So there's just this window of like, how much grace do you extend to those guys because they are our guys and they have put so much time into the program and they've seen it at its peak. But right now, Will Bolt didn't just walk in the door yesterday. His staff didn't get assembled just 2 weeks ago. They've been here a few years, and the pitching definitely has to improve. And, the starters, they've been okay this year, but the bullpen, major issue, and it's going to cost them. And I think we're all realizing retrospectively how good Spencer Schwellenbach was, not just as a shortstop, but when they could throw him on the mound in the 8th and 9th inning, and he was lights out. A closer, even though they have such limited time on the field, they are one of the most valuable players. And if you don't have a good closer, your record's gonna really reflect it at the end of the year.
Kevin Sjuts, we appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much. We'll talk again in 2 weeks.
All right, thank you, fellas.
Thanks, Kevin.
Coming up next, Kyle Boone here on Coffee and Cream.
Yeah, I mean, I've coached against it before. Obviously, when John Thompson Jr. was at Georgetown, they ran a version of it. Zelick ran it when he was at Colorado, when I was at Iowa State. We've played against it before, and this isn't a true Princeton offense, but a lot of their characteristics are the same. Their spacing's great, their cutting's elite, their ball security is really good, and they spread you out, space you out with their ability to shoot the basketball. So those things are in common. What they're doing is a little bit different than true Princeton, but a very efficient offensive team. Yeah, I mean.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Yeah, I mean, I've coached against it before. Obviously, when John Thompson Jr. was at Georgetown, they ran a version of it. Zelick ran it when he was at Colorado, when I was at Iowa State. So, we've played against it before, and this isn't a true Princeton offense, but, a lot of their characteristics are the same. Their spacing's great, their cutting's elite, their ball security is really good, and they spread you out, space you out with their ability to shoot the basketball. So those things are in common. What they're doing is a little bit different than true Princeton, but, a very efficient offensive team.
We are back to close out the show. Hail Varsity Club is where we are and where you should be to watch all things sports, especially when tournament basketball continues later this week and into the weekend. Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio. Happy to have you. 590 ESPN Omaha. We are on KFOR in Lincoln from the 9 to 10 hour, live on Twitter, live on YouTube. He's Damon Benning. I'm Andrew Rogers, and we are now being joined by Kyle Boone, CBS sports writer, and we are talking college basketball. I almost said college basketball because we're talking to Kyle. Kyle, good morning.
Good morning. Happy to talk some college basketball.
Thank you. Way to play.
Some college hoops. I like that.
Hey, we had this question earlier on in the show, and I hate having you decide right away on, what team's going to make it to the Final Four. But it's crazy because when you look, if we're just looking at the bracket, you look in the top left, and it seems like it's got to be Creighton and Bama that go to the Elite Eight. When you look at the top right, you're like, I don't know. You're like, Houston's playing well, but so is Miami. And then you have one of the best matchups in Texas and Xavier. And then you go to the bottom right. It's kind of the same thing. But then you go to the left, and you're like, Michigan State and K-State, okay. Like, Tom Izzo, great. K-State, yeah, good basketball team this year, Big 12. And then you're like, Tennessee and FAU? Like, kind of weird. As you kind of look about the Sweet 16, what has been your biggest surprise, whether it's region or whether it's team?
Well, yeah, that's probably the biggest surprise has got to be, I think, probably in the top left. Creighton, Princeton in a Sweet 16 matchup was definitely not expected. Number 3 seed Baylor going out before the Sweet 16. This was a team that I thought could make a real run, but their defense was not as good as expected. The number one offense in college basketball, I think it made them pretty lethal. But going out before the Sweet 16, Creighton's a really good team. And they're getting a 15-seeded Princeton team. This is the first time the Ivy League has been represented in the Sweet 16 since Cornell in 2010. The fourth 15 seed to ever advance to the Sweet 16. So that's a big shocker. There's also some shockers elsewhere. You look at FAU, Tennessee. 9 seeds and 8 seeds really rarely make it to the Sweet 16 because, of course, they win their first round matchup. They get a chance to face the number 1 seed in that region. But Purdue, the number 1 seed in that region, lost in round 1. So they had a chance to face 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson in the second round and were able to advance. So now they get FAU Tennessee in that region. That's just like a few of the surprises, though. I mean, Michigan State advancing past the 2 seed Marquette down in the bottom left of your bracket is another surprise. I mean, there's surprises littered throughout the bracket here. If you picked your bracket to be fairly chalky, you're probably not sitting well in your bracket pool because, yeah, March Madness is, as expected, has been truly mad. I still think the favorites have mostly held up. If you picked, Houston, who was the betting favorite coming in, or Alabama, who was second on the board, they're looking good right now. I think they're the current betting favorite. But yeah, for the most part, like the bracket has broken in many ways as people just totally did not expect.
Kyle, I was a little upset to see the draw just because I knew I was bucking the trend with Gonzaga defensively, especially their efficiency. And I liked UCLA. Those were the 2 teams that I said I would take 1, 2. And this was a month. This is probably about 5 weeks ago. But then I kind of doubled down a little bit and I said, hey, in our 6-pack of questions, let me give you 2 choices. Let me give you UConn and Texas. This is to go further as a pair. UConn and Texas and UCLA and Creighton. Now they're both in the sweet. Now they're all players. So given what you know now, do you feel better about taking aside the tandem of UConn and Texas or Creighton and UCLA?
Yeah, I would take UConn or Creighton. UConn out of the West region, I think, is my pick to go to the Final Four. And people may think, okay, that feels a little spicy, right? They're the number 4 seed in the West region. Yeah, the number 1 seed is down, but 2 seed UCLA is still alive. 3 seed Gonzaga is still alive. Well, one of those is going to cannibalize itself, Gonzaga, UCLA. UConn would face the winner of that matchup. And I like whichever matchup they would get. If it's UCLA, they get a UCLA team that has been really good in the NCAA tournament, but they just lost their best defender, Jalen Clark, to an Achilles injury just before the NCAA tournament. Adam Bona, who's kind of their star big man, is playing through an obvious shoulder injury. Not entirely sure they have kind of the depth that is required to make a deep run. If they get Gonzaga in that next matchup, then you have to face Drew Timme, who I think is one of the most capable big men in college basketball. But UConn has a 7-footer, Adama Sanogo. He's been fantastic. I think one of the best 5 players in the NCAA tournament. The last 2 times UConn has been to the Sweet 16, they've won the whole dang thing. They've won the national championship. So this is a spot they're very familiar with. Obviously, this is a new coaching staff. It's a new roster. It's been a while since UConn has been in this spot, but the bracket has busted open in a way where I think UConn can. I would take the UConn side. I'm not entirely sure I would pick Texas to come out of the Midwest just because of Houston, but if they do, it wouldn't be totally surprising. Houston is dealing with some injuries. The number 1 seed, obviously, in the Midwest region, Marcus Sasser's been dealing with a groin injury. He's their leading scorer. And then Jamal Shedd is playing through what Kelvin Sampson, the Houston coach there, described as a knee injury. So they don't seem to be quite at 100%. I think I would take the Texas UConn side if I had to pick one there.
Andrew and I have been debating since the tournament started, depth overrated or underrated. We talked to a couple beat writers, and they have their opinions. So let me change the context of the question a little bit. Creighton, who has 5 starters that play 30 minutes or more. Yeah. Texas and UConn and San Diego State, who I believe is going to be a thorn, all have depth. San Diego State has 9 guys, played in 33 games or more, all play 16 minutes or more. We know about UConn or Texas's depth. So to the good or to the bad of it being overrated, which of those 4 teams will the word depth matter the most?
Yeah, Yeah, I think it's it's hard to say if it's overrated or underrated. Some of these teams are so different stylistically that it's important for some teams and it's not important for others. You look at Alabama, for instance, and like most of their production comes from 2 or 3 or 4 guys on any given night. It's mostly Brandon Miller. They're getting contributions from Javon Quinterly. On offense, that is. Defensively, there's a lot of guys. I mean, this is like one of the best remaining defensive teams in the NCAA tournament. So the depth on that team defensively, I think, is really important. Go to Texas, the depth on that team offensively is very important, where they don't really have a guy they go to on any given night. Timmy Allen can be fantastic and lead the way. Marcus Carr can be really, really good for them.
All of a sudden, Dessou is back playing.
Yeah, Dessou, I think, has been fantastic on both ends of the floor. So it's tough. I think generally depth is overrated. When you have star players who can kind of will your team to a win, that's the most important thing. I always feel like I would prioritize star players and really like game-changing guards over the fact that you can play 9 or 10 guys in a game. But as you go through the NCAA tournament, I think depth is really important too. And the contenders in this year, I think, mostly have a really good blend of both. Houston is really good at the top of their roster, but they're a team that I think can go 7 or 8, 9 players deep. Tremont Mark had a career high in the NCAA tournament second round after the 2 stars, Jamal Shedd and Marcus Sasser, were injured. So a lot of these teams obviously showing themselves plenty capable of making deep NCAA tournament runs.
Kyle Boone, we appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much. Hopefully we can talk again soon.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. We'll see you.
Thanks,
see ya.
Kyle.
Boone, CBS sports writer at Kyle__Boone on Twitter. Don't forget that second underscore if you want to follow Kyle. Before we go today, I want to take a moment and tell you about Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and their mission to support one-on-one mentoring relationships that ignite the power and promise of youth. Listen to me here when I say research has shown that positive relationships between littles and their bigs have a direct and measurable impact on children's lives. By partnering with parents and guardians, volunteers, and other community, little brothers and little sisters are more likely to maintain or improve their emotions, decrease risky behaviors, improve their confidence in school, and maintain or improve their grades. If you want to be a big, go to mentoromaha.org to sign up today. If you missed anything on the show, head back to Apple and Spotify or your favorite podcast platform. You can find Coffee and Cream there by searching Hail Varsity Radio. He's Damon Benning at Damon Benning on Twitter. I'm at Andrew Rogers TV. Thanks for joining us as always. And GBR as Pro Day takes place.
GBR.
What, right now?
Yeah, we're rolling.
We're rolling. We are rolling. We will see you tomorrow.